is very, very important. There is a lot of value in stopping bad legislation. As an example, we almost had legislation go through that would have made Pennsylvania the most restrictive anti-abortion state in the country. Fortunately, our governor vetoed it. So my job would be to stop that. My job would be there to stop legislation that weakens our environmental protection. My job would be there to try to force sensible budget policy, and we could talk about that in a bit. So really what I see until we can flip the House in 2020, hopefully, is that it's really going to be more of a defensive role to stop bad legislation from moving forward. It's not as much fun, it's not as sexy, but it's very important. Then when we start getting more Democrats in the House, and again, I think that potentially 2020 is looking great, then you go on the offensive and do the fun things like passing real valuable progressive legislation, things that mean a lot to us. Love to work across the aisle and do all that bipartisanship and get equal rights and assure that Planned Parenthood's fully funded and that women's ability to choose is not infringed upon. But in all honesty, with the ratio we have right now, the job is to prevent things from getting worse. And then in 2020, which I truly believe will have either close or have a majority, that's when you go and really make the positive change. So I would love to say, day one, going to work bipartisan, we're going to get a lot of things done. Harrisburg actually has the reputation of being one of the most partisan state legislatures in the country. It would be a little unreasonable to think day one, all of a sudden, I'm going to change. Philip's going to go in there and change every Republican. We're going to work, in a bipartisan method. That's not going to happen. First 2 years, my job would be to stop bad legislation from happening. Dig your toes in, stop bad things from happening, and then when we get the chance, that's when you get the real progressive movement going. And that's the way it's got to be. That's the way politics is. Again, there are places that there will be bipartisan work. You see some of it now. Although I think some of what we see is bipartisan work, especially on gun safety, where the southeastern Republicans tend to vote for gun safety, knowing full well that the rest of the Republicans across the state will never allow it to happen. So there is some kind of false bipartisanship going on. I would never turn down a vote for good gun safety, no matter who it came from. You got to kind of realize why they're doing it. But again, stopping bad legislation is really going to be priority one. And then when we have the opportunity, really go on the offensive and do some wonderful progressive things in this state.
All right. If elected, how do you plan to keep your constituents up to date and informed on happenings and your efforts?
Right. So this will be my job when I win, and my plan is, unless we're off traveling to Disney World or something, that I would, my commitment is that at least once a week having a town hall, open town hall, hopefully not just at the office, but really moving that through the various communities in the 168 so people have an opportunity to come. It won't be on a Wednesday at 10 a.m. when nobody can show up. It will be on a Saturday. As an example. Yes, my Saturdays will be gone. I'm looking at my wife. So to me, one of the bad things about the reps we have now is that they're represented as a name, but they don't come and hear what you have to say. It's my intention to come hear what you have to say and represent, and not only the Democrats, but the Republicans too. I'm going to represent everybody and get their input. So my job is to be here a lot. I'm going to be living here. I don't know what it'd be like. My plan is to drive home every night if I can. And my plan is to be here, Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays and having time to come meet people. Again, what I said, one of the reasons I like the House representative race, it's the last political race where you can go out and meet everybody. And I'm knocking on doors, and we got signatures for petitions. But to me, going out meeting everybody, knocking on doors, doesn't stop November 9th, the day after the election. It's still going out to meet everybody. That's what's great about the size of the House representative seat. You can go out and meet people. So it is my intention to, I'm sorry? It is my intention to go out and meet everybody and have town hall meetings and things on that line. So that's the goal.
Cool. That is my last
Okay.
question, but we have plenty of time for follow-up questions or fresh questions. What would you guys like to talk about a little bit?
Well, so speaking of getting elected, did Ellen say that you have a primary?
I did.
So could you talk about that some, and then assuming you win that, how do you win the general election?
So the primary, it has changed my strategy. When I announced in July, I didn't realize I was going to have a primary. And so the original goal was just to talk to everybody. So the primary, now I'm really just focused on talking to Democrats right now. And we have a strong campaign on knocking on doors. I've personally knocked on lots of them. We have phone banking. It's really getting the message out. I do believe I have certain unique capabilities compared to my competitor, and it's really getting out to meet folks and making sure they hear what I have to say. And that's the goal in the primary. If I'm fortunate to win the primary, the real goal then is, of course, and the real battle is Chris Quinn is the current incumbent, and so the real question is, on the Republican side, the 168th does have more Republicans than Democrats plus independents combined. And I'm not going to go details into my strategy because this will be out on the website. But I do believe there are 2 or 3 issues that make a lot of sense from the Republican side that, as a businessman, convincing them a lot of the progressive things we want to do have really good business sense. A lot of things around the pipeline are very bad from a Republican point of view in terms of home equity value and personal property rights. There are issues we can talk to as Democrats that will make sense for Republicans in this area. And so a lot of the time post the primary is also to reach out to the Republican constituents in this area and say, hey, our budget is horrible. And by the way, that budget's been managed by the Republican House, and we are losing $100 million a year on bad budgeting. That doesn't make sense whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. The issues around personal property rights, that issue doesn't make, should bother you whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. There's a lot of issues that have nothing to do with your party, but actually impact your pocketbook and your health and your safety here, that I think we really can make a good general story for the Republicans here and get enough Republicans to help vote me into office. I don't want to go into too much more detail, obviously, but that's kind of the general gist of it.
For what it's worth, Philip's, what's it called, the person you run against?
Competitor.
Primary
opponent. Was asked the exact same questions, and that was videotaped as well as this. So I think what I'll do once we wrap up this is for under both of those Facebook events, I will link the videos from both candidates, as well as there was a forum very recently by Media Dems that had both of you as well as both of the state Senate candidates. So for people who weren't able to see both, they get an opportunity to see both of you guys in depth answering the same questions, as well as an opportunity from this other forum to see you guys next to each other.
Yeah. Although I'm not 100% sure the Media Dem one got completely videotaped.
They didn't do the introductions, they did the
Okay.
entire Q&A.
Okay.
Yeah. Which I was disappointed because I arrived late. I would have liked to get a chance to hear what I didn't hear. Any other questions, friends? We have plenty of time.
Well,
Yes,
can you
sir.
speak with the school system in the sad state of vocational art, where they don't teach vocational ed to a lot of the people in the industry you want to move forward, all these people that know how to read a ruler, and that somehow all the unions in the area have their bills paid now, they're fat, and if they could take their apprenticeship type program and fashion it where vocational arts have a good baseline to send the kids for feeder system into the apprentice program. Right now, they don't have it. It takes a year to get a kid up to speed just so he can be competitive as a first year apprentice. We want him competitive day one coming through the door, and the high schools should be responsible for that.
So you bring up a good point, and we actually didn't talk about higher education at all here. We do not value the trades and the vocational art education as much as we should. We used to, we don't. And so anything that we look at in terms of future, funding of education, even at the college level, should have a component on vocational training. I've talked with the unions. I'm actually endorsed by the plumbers union, and I've had a lot of talks with them because they have a great apprentice program. And how can you expand that type of apprentice program to a larger audience? The high schools would be a great place. We should have funding for it. We barely have funding for the schools now, but yes, that should be a very strong component. We are very blessed in the 168th that we actually have the Williams Trade School, which is a great model, which should be promulgated throughout the state. It's a wonderful trade school, especially in a certain number of trades. They don't do all the trades there. But, we should actually be having a track of people who, say, want to go get a bachelor's degree in something, and people who are focused on wanting to do the trades. It is, that's who builds our buildings and puts in our electrical systems and our pipes, and yet we tend to ignore that. And that term "making America great" is so used by the other side. But look what makes America great: our manufacturing might, our trades, and our scientists. They're all together, and we have severely turned away from the vocational training, and so that should be strengthened. It should be, welding arts as well as house building arts, as well as even, home economic arts. We don't have enough of that training, and that should be part of the curriculum in high school. And definitely we should have post-high school places for people to go that are funded to continue their vocational education. I would definitely support increasing funding for that and trying to expand that throughout the state.
Well, the best thing I've realized, after a 4-year apprentice program, I had no student debt. I had a mortgage on my first house and a new car. What kids do that coming out of college?
Yeah.
And you can always go to college in Local 19 if you go to our business management school and get so many marks, they'll fund you to Drexel. Because we need kids that want to be in the vocational arts, and we'll pay their tuition to go to Drexel.
That's phenomenal. And we should replicate that type of program everywhere. It's really, really a great idea. I actually support that. Yes, sir.
So if school taxes are going to be the add-on for every district, the real estate taxes are going to be the add-on for every district, and we're going to be funding at a state level the base education, where's that funding coming from?
I was waiting for that question. So, interestingly enough, I've been looking into this because, as Democrats, we probably have about 30 things that we are really passionate about that all cost money. The environment costs money, education costs money, special needs cost money, everything costs money. And to be honest, this is where a lot of the story about being a Democrat falls apart, because our Republican colleagues we have no money, we're not going to pay for everything. There's actually some very interesting sources of revenue that we lose in this state. And I'm not an expert in it. There's a group called the Center for Budget Policy. If you go to their website, they've actually proposed a lot of very interesting sources of revenue. As an example, just a couple of them. We do not really have a luxury tax in this state. And I was listening to one of the Center of Budget Policy's talks, and they threw out something that stunned me. I have to verify it, so I'm telling you, so I have to verify. But as an example, we all pay 6% tax on everything we buy, including food. And so even the underprivileged, economically